Vogue, first of all, congratulations, the second poet laureate in Clark County.
I'm number two.
Why did you want to become the poet laureate, and what do you expect is going to happen in your 2 year term?
I was actually really reluctant. I didn't want it at first, and I had multiple people in the community that I'm familiar with, but I'm not super close with them. But they actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you applying?" And I was like, "Nah." And they were like, "Vogue, you should apply," and gave reasons and were like, you're already doing great things in the community. You're kind of building a bridge between people who are more focused on the page, people who are focused on stage, people who are kind of in the middle and beginning writers. Like they're like, you're helping kind of connect all of those different sects of poetry. You're pretty much doing the work. Apply. And so in that spirit, I was like, okay. And then I applied.
Replacing Mr. Bruce Isaacson, you're actually a poet laureate representative anyway, so you had a little bit of an idea of what you want to do, and maybe some guidance from Bruce already.
Yeah, I work really closely with Bruce. So I mean, it's if you would have told me a long time ago that I would be friends with someone, an older gentleman who's like almost twice my age, and you're an old Jewish man, and if I would have told you like, oh, that's going to be one of your best friends, I wouldn't have believed you. But Bruce is one of my best friends. And he's a kind person, and he's so supportive of all poetry. But like, sorry, I'm a big old emotional mess, but I'm super appreciative of him, of his dedication to the community and the example that he set, and I'm excited to follow it. And he's going to be, wonderful. And yeah.
How would you describe the state of poetry in Southern Nevada? I read something that you say arts in Southern Nevada are this huge oasis.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you, Vogue?
So if I had to describe it, and I'm trying to word this the same way, so I mean we're in the middle of the desert, and for myself, my home is where I'm from is California, so you're accustomed to kind of not really weather, it trickles and you're like, oh my God, it's rain. So this is an entirely different ball game where you have, a kind of climate where you have to stay hydrated, and I think of that about how you take care of yourself as a person. So as an artist, you need time away from other people to do your creating. But when you decide to insert yourself into the arts community, there's this huge group of people who are there to support you, who want to help you out, who are going to give you some water, who are going to give you some inspiration, who are going to help make sure you don't die in the middle of the desert because you didn't drink any water. And so that's why I would liken it to an oasis, for sure.
One of the things that you have already done to bring poetry to the community, and you say you're going to continue to do so, is reach both ends of the multi-generational spectrum. You want to bring poets and poetry to schools for school kids, and then to retirement homes for older folks. Talk about that program. Why do you want to do that?
Well, my grandma's a teacher. She's a retired teacher. My grandma's 95, and she was myself and my older sister. She was our primary caregiver. So she was 66 when I was born. I'm super accustomed to being around people who are a lot older than me. It just feels comfortable. It feels like home, and I say funny things that are very similar to what my grandma says. So that's why I want to go into that community. And I think we should take poetry into unconventional spaces. And writing is a lot of times a form of therapy. And so a lot of times when you're in a retirement home, maybe your family doesn't come to see you very often. Or in my grandmother's case, she just lost her last sister maybe 7 years ago. So when you lose your siblings, then you have to think about it from the perspective that no one else in this world knows you the way that they knew you. Everybody that knows my grandma right now knows her as Vogue's grandma, Mrs. Carpenter, teacher. Nobody remembers her as sister, as friend, in the way that her siblings did. And so when you don't have anybody in your generation that you grew up with around you, like how sad is that? And so I think writing is a great way to kind of work your way through those feelings. And anytime somebody can stay busy, it helps motivate them to keep living. And with the schools, I just think it'll be a good way to cross paths, to connect the students to the arts community that's here in the city, give them a sense of pride so they know there are working artists here, that it is a viable option add it with something else though. You can be an artist, but you should do something else to make some more money also, but do both. And to encourage them to write. I think if you're not encouraged to write at a young age, or you're not encouraged to express yourself, something happens to that energy. It's gotta go somewhere. And so I want to make sure that we're giving people different ways of expressing themselves, especially in the schools. And they have a huge anti-bullying campaign going on for CCSD right now anyways. And writing would be a great thing to include.
Very nice. Well, we've had you read here in our studio.
It's for my grandma and my other half. I want to be with you long enough to notice newly formed moles on your face and trace them back to our lineage.
And you reference your grandmother in Denture Love and some of the other readings. Is she your biggest influence, or is family the biggest influence in your own personal poetry style?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, not necessarily style, but content. I try to write about things I know. There are other ways you can write and other things you can focus on, but I'm just trying to honor what poetry is from like an African perspective, and then that's in being a griot, being a storyteller. So you're holding your family and your people's stories, and it's through the oral tradition. And so, I mean, when I'm done telling our stories, then I'll do something else. But we got a lot of stuff going on, so I'm just gonna keep writing about my family and my life, and clarifying how I see myself in the future and what I want for myself and my husband.
Vogue, you're a published author. Vogue 316 is on Amazon, and you also have upcoming Clark, an anthology of Clark County poets. Now, I have no idea what that's all about.
What? Bruce started it. It's all Bruce's fault. Bruce and I, so my book, it's on Amazon. I'm gonna bring in a bunch of copies very soon, so that I have them on me more often. But that's on Amazon, but I'll be able to sell it in person. Bruce's anthology, it's 95 poets. It's about 280 pages. And then we have about 10 to 12 visual artists. So it's a massive book, and it's going to be amazing. And I want to actually take it and campaign it to different coffee shops and do readings where we have 3 or 4 readers from the book read them from their work in the book, and then we'll let the poets sell the books to people. So yeah.
That's exciting. Obviously, you're very well known, in the poetry circles, I guess, and you host a number of different events. Talk about some of the events you host and some of the venues around town that have been very supportive of poetry in Clark County.
Sure. There's a lot. So right now, I currently co-host the Battleborn Slam. It's at Publicus downtown, which is now the only coffee shop downtown that I know of. Rest in peace, The Beat. So it's a great coffee shop. Lane Olson is a wonderful person. He's been very supportive. I don't know if he owns it, but I know he manages it. So, and we're trying to help also expand their hours. So Battleborn Slam happens the 2nd and 4th Friday of every month. Other open mics, really all of the Arts District is filled with open mics. So Hop Nuts Brewery, Rebar, Raw Remedies, which is actually a place that does natural hair. They do like dreadlocks, and they sell incense and other products, but they have a full stage, and that's for soul sessions. So yeah, and then the Arts Factory pretty much always houses an open mic. They might have a lull for a little while, but they always house something. I mean, those are the 3 main ones. And then out in Henderson is E String Bar, and they have an open mic there called Sharing Reality on 4th Wednesdays.
What if somebody wants to get into the poetry game? You've talked a lot about slams and open mics. Workshops are also part of your curriculum, and is that a good way to reach out to novice poets?
Yeah, I think that's the best place, especially we do one at the Winchester Cultural Center. It's on McLeod Drive, and that's usually actually every Saturday at 2 o'clock. There's readings, so instead of being on stage in open mic that's loud and hustle bustle, it's just you all sit at a table and everybody just round robin reads their poems. So that happens at 2 o'clock every Saturday. The 2nd Saturday of each month are the workshops. And those are more catered towards either discussing a poet that is coming to town or poets that the group has said that they have an interest in. And so someone will take it upon themselves to study that person's work, create a class, and then teach it. So Heather Lang has taught a haiku and Chinese oral tradition translation. She taught a workshop on that. Angela Brommel has taught a workshop on the poetry of Sharon Olds. So you get a little bit of everything.
Excellent. Well, take care of that voice, and June 1st, you start your 2-year 2. Get out there and poet laureate, right?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.